Welcome to Vold Revolution channel. This is a book summary, Mindset Secrets for Winning by Mark Minervini. Discover how Mark Minervini turned poverty into millions by changing his thinking, offering easy steps to build confidence and win in business, sports, and life. This book shares real stories and simple tricks to overcome failures, like using positive beliefs to spot opportunities every day. Unlock your hidden power with practical tips on setting goals and practicing perfectly, solving common problems like lack of motivation or fear of risks. Imagine transforming your daily struggles into triumphs, just as top athletes do, with mindset secrets that work for anyone. Let's find out more.
Wow, that's a perfect way to set the stage for what we're doing today. We're really diving deep into the source material behind that exact transformation. Specifically, we're covering the foundational part of Minervini's work, part 1, which he calls mastering your mindset.
Right. And the mission here, for anyone listening who really wants to figure out how to get from point A to, championship level point B, is to pull out these core psychological traits, the things that separate the real winners from people who are just, talented. We're not looking at technical skill today.
No, not at all. We're looking at the operating system, the thing that makes the skill actually work when it matters.
And this is exactly where Minervini starts things off, right?
Yeah.
By setting up this idea of the psychological edge.
Exactly, the psychological edge. He points out that you can have, world-class technical skill, but if your mindset is wrong,
it's useless.
It's basically useless under pressure. It just falls apart.
Which, that sounds a little counterintuitive at first. We always assume the person who, puts in the most hours at the gym or has the highest IQ is the one who's going to win.
Right. But if you really look at elite performers, it's the mental game that makes all the difference. It's the absolute differentiator.
Yeah.
Look at the Masters, the swimmer, Mark Spitz. He famously said that the difference between winning and losing is 99% psychological.
99%. That's staggering.
It is. And Jack Nicklaus, maybe the greatest golfer ever, he said the same thing. He emphasized that mental prep is the single most critical element. So if these guys whose entire lives were about physical excellence are telling us the mental side is basically the whole battle, well, we have to listen. The mindset comes before the strategy.
And I think what gives Minervini so much credibility here is that he's not just some academic looking at this from the outside.
No, he's lived it.
He lived it. This is a self-made multi-millionaire stock trader. He applied these exact principles in one of the, most stressful environments you can possibly imagine.
And he started with almost nothing, an 8th grade education, very little money, but he eventually got just a mind-boggling 33,500% return over 5 years.
I can't even process that number.
Nobody can. It's an average of 220% a year. So this is applied street-level mastery of the mental game. This isn't theory.
And that track record, it gives him so much weight when he talks about winning. But what's really important, and I think you'll agree, is that he immediately broadens that definition. It's not just about money.
No, it's much deeper. He grounds the whole thing in a philosophy he learned from his mother, which, it aligns perfectly with that classic definition from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
The idea of winning inside. That's the key phrase.
Yes. It's about personal fulfillment, about purpose, the money, the wins. Those are just side effects. They're the result of an aligned mindset.
He pulls out that Emerson quote, and it's beautiful. Success is laughing often, winning the respect of intelligent people, finding the best in others.
And the most powerful part, knowing even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded.
It just shifts the whole focus, doesn't it? It tells you that this isn't just about, hitting your quarterly goals. It's about building a mind that supports real growth. Not just for you, but for everyone around you.
Exactly, for spiritual and community contribution. So to even begin to understand how to get there, we have to start at the absolute beginning. We have to start with the brain itself. Okay,
let's do it. Let's unpack this and jump right into section 1. The believing brain. This is all about how our core beliefs, they basically dictate our entire reality.
Minervini uses this really powerful metaphor here. He says the brain is the computer software and the body is the hardware.
Right. And the hardware, the body, it's just inert. It can't do anything without direction.
Exactly. The software, it controls every single function, every action, every result. And inside that software, you have what he calls global beliefs. Think of that as the operating system. It's the invisible code that's running all your decisions, all your behaviors, and most of the time you're not even aware it's happening.
And the scary part is that so much of that initial software, those global beliefs, they're just hand-me-downs.
We just absorb them
Mm.
unconsciously from family, from media, friends, especially when we're kids. So we're basically running on this pre-programmed code that might be totally outdated.
Or just wrong. It might be completely irrelevant to the successful adult you're trying to become now.
That's the challenge of self-determination. I mean, look at your life right now. Your finances, your relationships, your career. They're just physical manifestations of the beliefs you've been acting on.
So if you want a different result, you can't just try harder.
No, you have
right.
to fundamentally rewrite the software. And that is incredibly difficult because of this really powerful psychological force, confirmation bias.
Right, that's the thing that makes us cling to our beliefs, even when there's a mountain of evidence telling us we're wrong. It's like a defense mechanism for our ego.
It is, precisely. Once you have a strong belief, you create what Minervini calls disbelief systems for anything that challenges it. Confirmation bias means you actively go looking for and give more weight to any little piece of evidence that confirms what you already think. And at the same time, you just conveniently filter out or forget anything that contradicts it.
It's a self-reinforcing loop. It just keeps your reality locked in right where it is.
And the book gives such a clear example of this. The University of Minnesota Jane experiment.
Oh, yeah. Walk us through that one. It's a perfect illustration.
Okay, so in this experiment, people were given a description of a woman named Jane. The description was balanced. It had examples of her being introverted, she's quiet, loves reading.
And extroverted.
And extroverted, outgoing, loves parties, a mix. Then they split the participants into two groups. The first group gets asked, would Jane make a good librarian?
Okay.
The second group gets asked, would Jane make a good real estate agent?
And just that question completely changed what they remembered about her.
Completely. The librarian group, they selectively remembered all her quiet, introverted traits and said, yeah, she'd be a great fit. The real estate agent group, they remembered all the outgoing party traits and said she'd be perfect for that job.
Even though they all read the exact same balanced description.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Their mental filter, the belief system the question gave them, it shaped which facts they pulled into their memory. It proves that reality isn't objective. It's shaped by the beliefs we already hold.
Wow, that explains so much. It explains why two people can look at the same exact situation, the same data, the same opportunity, and come to completely opposite conclusions. They're just filtering the information differently.
And this filtering, this is what leads directly to self-sabotage. Minervini frames this using the ideas of congruency and cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. That's an uncomfortable feeling you get when your actions don't line up with your core beliefs.
Yes, it creates this violent internal conflict. And here's the kicker. Often, that deep, old global belief wins. It leads to self-sabotage just to restore that mental peace, that congruency.
So your mind will actively wreck a good thing just to prove a bad belief right.
It has to maintain congruency. If your subconscious identity is, say, I'm not worthy of a happy relationship, you will find a way to undermine that relationship. You'll pick a fight, you'll pull away, you'll do something to bring your external reality back in line with that internal belief.
That's a powerful and, frankly, a terrifying idea.
Yeah.
And for so long, we were taught that once that software was installed, our brains were just fixed.
Right, especially after childhood. But that whole idea has been completely overturned by the science of neuroplasticity.
This is where we get some hope.
This is where the hope comes in. Neuroplasticity confirms the brain is not static. It is physically dynamic. It can and it does change its physical structure and its neural pathways your entire life.
So we can literally rewire our own brains. We can strengthen the connections we use and let the ones we don't just fade away.
That's it exactly. The brain is constantly doing what's called synaptic pruning. It's deleting useless connections and strengthening the important ones. It's biological proof that we are not trapped by our past.
The example of the Braille readers is so clear on this.
It's a perfect physical example. A Braille reader, through years of dedicated practice, develops a physically larger hand sensory area in their brain. That's not genetics. That's a physical change caused by intentional focus. Which brings us to Dr. Joe Dispenza's concept, which sounds a little out there until you look at the science. Thoughts become matter.
Could break that down. What's the actual biochemical process there?
It's simple cause and effect. A thought, any thought, triggers a cascade of chemical signals in your brain. Those chemicals get released into your body, and they make your body feel exactly how you're thinking.
So if you're thinking fearful thoughts.
You release stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, and you feel fear and anxiety in your body.
And then that feeling creates more fearful thoughts. It's a loop.
It's an autoneurotic loop. You are literally hardwiring your brain into a state of stress. Your brain becomes a physical, chemical mirror of your habitual thinking. And that's why changing your thoughts feels so hard. You're fighting your own biology.
So the whole battle then is about realizing we're not victims of what happens to us. We are masters of how we perceive it.
That is the ultimate source of personal power. Nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning we give it. Raw data comes in, a traffic jam, a bad trade, a breakup, and we, and only we, choose the emotional label. Anger, fear, opportunity, confidence. It's our choice.
Minervini really hammers this point. Blaming external things is just giving away your power. Saying, this traffic jam is stressing me out is a lie.
It is. The traffic jam is just data. You are creating the stress. Our thoughts about the events drive us, not the events themselves.
It's like that Peace Pilgrim story. She gets thrown in jail, but she doesn't feel imprisoned.
Not at all. She tells the officer, it's only the body you can put behind bars. She chose the meaning of the event. She remained internally free. That's psychological independence.
And that freedom lets you reprocess your past, too. The light bulb analogy.
I love this one.
Me too. You can't change the light fixture. The event happened. But you can always change the light bulb, the meaning you give it. You can take a memory that has crippled you and turn it into a lesson that liberates you.
It's a conscious act of rewriting your own mental history. So if we know we can do this, how do we actually do it? How do we rewrite the software?
He gives a very clear 3-step process for this belief recalibration. And it starts with a challenge.
Step 1, you have to challenge the old limiting belief. You have to ask with brutal honesty, how is this belief holding me back? What is this costing me? You have to make it painful to keep it.
Step 2, introduce a new empowering belief. You have to fill that void immediately. What new belief would serve me better? And what evidence can I find, even small evidence, to support it?
And step 3, reinforce it. Over and over and over again, you have to validate it with your thoughts, your actions, your attention. And this is where the brain's internal doorkeeper comes in to help us. The reticular activating system.
The RAS. This is such a critical concept. It's basically our brain's filter.
And we need a filter. We're getting hit with, what, an estimated 11 million sensory inputs every second. We can't process all that.
We'd be paralyzed.
Instantly. So the RAS filters out everything it thinks is irrelevant and only lets the important stuff through to our conscious mind. It's literally the doorkeeper to your awareness.
So whatever we decide is important through our focus and our beliefs, the RAS is programmed to find more of it.
And the burnt orange pickup truck story is the perfect, simple example of this.
Right. Before he bought one, he never noticed them.
Never. The day after he buys it, he sees them everywhere. Did the number of burnt orange trucks on the road magically increase overnight?
Of course not. His RAS was just reprogrammed. His focus and emotional investment in the purchase told his brain, this is important now. So it started filtering them into his consciousness. It's proof that we attract and notice what we focus on.
So if you're focused on scarcity and problems, guess what your RAS is going to show you?
More scarcity and more problems.
But if you program your mind to focus on winning, on opportunity, on growth, your RAS starts delivering those things to your conscious mind. It points them out to you.
Which makes perfect sense. Our focus literally creates our reality. Okay, so if we're going to focus on winning beliefs, what are the most important ones? This takes us right into section 2, the 7 noble truths of a winner.
Yes, these are the core beliefs, the established operating system that separates the consistent high performers from absolutely everyone else.
And the very first one, the foundation, is that winning is a choice. This means champions don't leave things up to chance.
No, they actively create the conditions for success. If you don't believe winning is a choice, then you're just relying on luck. You're basically saying you have no control. And once you believe you're dependent on luck, Minervini says you're sunk.
So the first step is just realizing that you choose the mindset, you choose the effort, you choose to win.
Which flows right into truth 2, ownership of destiny. And we have to be careful with the language here. This is about responsibility, not blame.
Right. Blame looks outward. Ownership looks inward.
Exactly. Ownership asks, how did I contribute to this? And what is my ability to respond now? It's about focusing only on what you can control. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions. Champions put all their energy there.
It's an energy management strategy, really.
Yeah.
And that leads to truth 3. Great achievement is a process. This is the anti-shortcut truth.
Yes, the anti-magical thinking truth. Success isn't one giant leap, it's incremental. It's eating the elephant one bite at a time.
He quotes Helen Keller here. "I long to accomplish a great and noble task, but it is my chief duty to accomplish small tasks as if they were great and noble."
That's a call for mastery in the mundane. It's about trusting the process, the daily disciplines, and executing them perfectly, instead of obsessing about the final win way off in the distance.
And that process will inevitably have setbacks, which is truth 4. Every result contains a lesson. Failure in this mindset is just an illusion.
It's just a judgment. An outcome is just information. It's feedback. It tells you what's working and what needs to be changed immediately. Sebastian Coe, the Olympian, said he rarely lost a race that didn't teach him something valuable.
So obstacles aren't stop signs. They're just tests. They're part of the journey to make you stronger.
But getting through those tests requires truth 5. Willingness to go the distance. This is about unconditional determination.
Willingness. That means you love the journey itself, not just the destination.
Yes. Minervini is the proof. He says even if he hadn't made all that money, he'd still be trading stocks today because he just loved the process so much. That passion is the fuel. It's the difference between doing something for a reward and doing something because it's who you are.
And the next truth is about shattering our own limits. Truth 6. Records are meant to be broken by people just like you.
This is a psychological lever. When you see someone else succeed, especially someone who started where you are, it breaks that mental barrier of it's impossible. It proves the goal is attainable.
Like Sairi Pak in golf. Before her, there were almost no Korean women on the tour. She wins, and suddenly a whole generation sees that it's possible, and now they dominate.
One person shatters the illusion, and everyone's vision expands. If you have a working brain and the right process, you can do it too.
And finally, truth 7. It's never too late to become the person you always wanted to be.
The ultimate affirmation, the potential is already in you. And the most important part of this is that these beliefs are the cause of success, not the effect. Champions believed these things before they won. That's why they won.
That is such a critical distinction. You have to adopt the identity first. Okay, so if belief is the foundation, how do we turn that into actual performance? Especially under pressure. This brings us to the self-image in section 3.
Minervini starts this section with a really vulnerable story about his first karate tournament loss. He had all the physical skill, all the training, but he lost mentally. His self-image as a competitor was poor.
So he was technically ready, but he had no mental strategy. He realized the most important thing to strengthen wasn't his kicks, it was his self-image.
And this is where most of us stumble. We have this natural tendency for negative self-fixation. We're constantly finding fault in ourselves. I wish I was taller. I always choke under pressure. We focus on what's wrong.
And that focus creates the boundary of our performance. He calls it the like-you zone, the thermostat principle.
Yes. Your self-image acts like a thermostat. It regulates your performance to keep it consistent with who you subconsciously believe you are. If you believe I choke under pressure, your self-image will make damn sure you choke when the pressure is on. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And the fundamental rule he lays out is so stark, you cannot outperform your self-image.
It's a massive constraint. Think about it. Someone who's an 8 out of 10 in raw talent, but their self-image is only a 4. They're going to perform like a 4 when it counts. That low self-image is like an invisible anchor.
But wait, doesn't he also say you should have an unrealistic self-image? How does that work without just being delusional?
That's a great question. When he says unrealistic, he means a self-image that's slightly ahead of your current skill level. It's aspirational. It's a psychological magnet pulling your performance up to meet it. It's not delusion if you're putting in the work to make it real.
Ah, like Muhammad Ali, I am the greatest.
The perfect example. He wasn't just talking trash to his opponents. He was programming his own mind. He was building an internal self-image that was equal to his incredible potential. He aligned his inner belief with his outer goal.
And to understand how that works, we need the iceberg theory, the conscious versus subconscious mind.
Right. Think of an iceberg. Only about 10% is above the water. That's your conscious mind, your logic, your willpower. Minervini calls it the captain. The other 90%, the huge mass underwater, is the subconscious, the crew. That's where your memories, emotions, values, and your self-image all live.
So the conscious captain can give an order, win this match. But if the subconscious crew is full of negative self-image memories like, you always mess this up,
The crew resists. They sabotage the order. And under pressure, it's the subconscious crew that takes over. It's what you do automatically. That's why willpower alone isn't enough. The 10% is fighting the 90%.
So how do you get the crew on board? How do you train them?
Positive reinforcement, shaping. You have to train yourself like an animal trainer using high-emotion events to anchor positive performance, and it has to be immediate.
This is where celebration comes in. The fist pump, the shout of victory.
Yes. You are literally imprinting into your subconscious that winning is like you. He says if you skip the celebration, you're cheapening the effort and you're missing a huge opportunity to strengthen that winning identity. Think of Tiger Woods. That raw jubilation was him wiring his brain for the next win.
And this leads to better self-talk. When a mistake happens, champions don't beat themselves up.
No, they ask, what did I learn? And when a success happens, the thought is, that's like me to do that. They're constantly, relentlessly collecting evidence that supports the champion's self-image.
And he gives a great practical tool for this, the victory journal.
Which is more than just writing down your wins. It's about re-experiencing the feeling of those wins. By doing that, you're creating this psychological reservoir of success that you can tap into on demand, especially before a big event.
That's a powerful idea. Okay, moving on. We have the belief, we have the self-image, now we need the endurance. Section 4, expectancy, commitment, and persistence.
Right, this is about the grind. Because the initial motivation always fades, and he has this amazing definition of commitment.
Doing the thing you said you were going to do long after the excitement and jubilation you initially felt has faded. That's it. That's the difference between a resolution and a real transformation.
And what sustains that commitment is not just willpower, it's expectancy. Expectancy is the key. It's not just wanting to succeed. It's a deep, unconscious belief, a visceral certainty that you will succeed.
He gives that great example of the 1996 U.S. Olympic women's basketball team to show how to build that.
Their coach held a mock medal ceremony months before the games. They stood on a podium, heard the anthem, got fake medals. They felt the emotion of winning before they even competed. That experience created this intense expectancy that fueled all the hard work that came later.
So real achievers see challenges not as drudgery, but as an electrifying part of the process.
Yeah.
The certainty that the effort is worth it keeps them going.
And there's a psychological principle that helps here too, the endowed progress effect.
This one is so fascinating. The idea that we work harder when we think we're closer to a goal, even if that head start is fake.
The car wash loyalty card experiment is the perfect example. One card needed 10 stamps but came with 2 pre-stamped. The other needed 8 but was blank.
They both needed 8 more purchases.
Right, but the people with the Head Start card redeemed it at almost twice the rate. That illusion of being closer drove their persistence.
So we can use that on ourselves by breaking big goals into smaller chunks. Each small win creates that feeling of proximity and momentum.
It's a psychological engine. But when setbacks happen, champions manage them with a selective memory. They don't ignore mistakes, they analyze them, learn, and move on.
But they don't replay the failure over and over in their heads.
No, absolutely not. Replaying failure is rehearsing failure. It creates negative expectancy. Winners consciously choose to relive the good experiences.
And underpinning all of this is the ultimate pledge to persevere.
The until it happens or die trying mindset. You just remove quitting as an option. If quitting is even on the table, he says you're already halfway there.
That unwavering attitude is what it takes. And that leads us to the moment it all comes together. Section V, the moment of decision.
This is where Minervini says our ultimate personal power lies. Decision is the authority to change everything in an instant. It's when you choose what to think, what to do, and what things mean.
So why are so many people paralyzed by decisions?
Because every decision is driven by either seeking pleasure or avoiding pain. And the fear of making the wrong decision, avoiding that immediate pain, is a much stronger motivator for most people.
So we get stuck. We don't want to cut off our other options.
Even though the word decide literally means to cut off. So the most important decision is just to decide. To pull the trigger. Real change happens when you stop thinking about it and you just become that person.
Like when he quit smoking. He didn't taper off. He just woke up and decided, I am a non-smoker now. The decision created a new identity.
And that new identity forced new positive actions. He had to be congruent with, I am a healthy person. The old belief was severed instantly.
It's like Yoda said, do or do not. There is no try.
Exactly. Trying is not doing. Delay just makes your fears bigger. So the key is to shift your focus from the short-term pain of the effort.
To the long-term pain of not doing it.
Yes, what will this procrastination cost me in 5 years? In health, in freedom. You use that long-term pain to fuel immediate action.
And to get better at this, he recommends a decision audit. Just start making small decisions to build the muscle.
Exactly. Confidence comes from making decisions and learning, not from playing it safe. And when you do need help, he says to seek wisdom, not advice.
That's the difference.
Advice tells you what to do, which keeps you dependent. Wisdom teaches you how to figure things out for yourself. It empowers you.
And he says you should build a personal wisdom advisory board of inspirational people to surround yourself with, even if you just read their books.
You raise your circle of influence by design, not by chance.
That design is a perfect transition to our last section for today, Section 6, prioritizing your passion and goal-getting.
And this section hits with a hard truth. What's most important always wins over what you want the most. Everyone wants success, but what you actually prioritize, where you spend your time and energy, that's what shows up in your life.
So if you want an extraordinary life, your priorities have to be deliberately aligned with your passion.
And that often means living an unbalanced life. He laughs at being called a workaholic because for him, it wasn't work. It was living my passion. Extraordinary results require extraordinary focus.
And that focus has to apply to the quality of your practice, not just the quantity. He says that old try again idea can be flawed.
Deeply flawed. Because if you miss a target 19 times and hit it once, you've just spent most of your time practicing how to fail. You've imprinted 19 failures and 1 success.
So instead, we need perfect practice, the V sessions.
The V session. You structure your practice to start and end on a high note. You work on the hard stuff in the middle, but you always end with a success. The subconscious remembers the end most strongly.
So you never send a loser home. You're building skill and confidence at the same time.
And this mental imprinting leads right into visualization and rehearsal. This isn't just some woo-woo concept. Your brain interprets a vividly imagined scenario the same way it interprets a real one.
The Harvard piano study proved that. The group that only mentally rehearsed the exercise built the same new neural circuits as the group that physically practiced.
It's a total game changer. Mental rehearsal builds confidence and expectancy. It prepares your subconscious to take over automatically under pressure.
So you can just trust your training.
Exactly. And you support this with constant positive self-talk, like Serena Williams in her affirmation notebook. And just before a big event, you run your highlight reel. You relive your best past performances to flood your system with the chemistry of confidence.
It's a complete system. This whole first part of the book, it's a blueprint for moving from being a passive victim of your old programming to being an active, deliberate programmer of your own success.
The message is just so clear. Success isn't about luck or innate talent. It's about the intentional, deliberate mastery of your own mind.
And you, the listener, you now have these empowerment principles. You can start living in the identity of a champion right now. I mean, Minervini's own story proves that your capabilities are limited only by your thinking.
We always reach our psychological limits long before we reach our physical ones. By applying these principles, you can start tapping into a level of potential you probably didn't even know you had.
So, to leave you with one final thought, something to mull over from the book, the beautiful composition known as the human race will go on, and while you are here, you are indeed contributing a verse. The question is, what will your verse be?
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, follow up in next topic. Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves once again in the specific strategies of peak performance. We're moving past the philosophical framework and really getting into the absolute concrete action plans required for success.
That's right.
We're looking at a stack of sources centered on Mark Minervini's principles for not just, wishing for success, but systematically engineering it.
That's precisely right. Our mission today is very specific. We want to distill the key psychological and technical strategies that act as the hardware. Really, they translate that internal belief into external, repeatable, and predictable success.
Okay.
We're digging deep into what you might call the operational manual, covering part 2, mastering perfect practice, and then culminating with the profound lifetime commitment required in the bonus chapter, living with intention.
And Minervini, of course, is a master of these diverse high-stakes environments. His background spans, transforming a modest investment into millions on Wall Street, winning the U.S. investing championship? And then at the same time, mastery in competitive pistol shooting and martial arts. This sheer breadth of experience It really demonstrates that these principles are entirely agnostic.
They really are.
They work in complex financial markets just as well as they work on the competition stage or, in the boardroom.
And that universality is the core takeaway we want you, the listener, to grasp. I mean, whether you are a high-stakes investor, a business leader prepping for a critical negotiation, an athlete,
right,
or just someone trying to maximize your daily personal productivity, the fundamental mechanics of the mind are the same machine.
It's all the same hardware.
Exactly. The quality and the intention of your training, the way you program that machine, that's what ultimately determines the outcome when the pressure is at its highest.
We are thrilled to come back to continue Mindset Secrets for Winning and truly understand the practical steps necessary to translate that belief into action. We've discussed the power of belief. Now let's look at the infrastructure required to support that belief, starting with the very foundation of achievement, how we structure our training.
Okay, so we begin with Chapter 7, which forces us to address a crucial and maybe an uncomfortable distinction between just forming a habit and creating perfect habits.
Right.
Most of us grew up hearing that old cliche, practice makes perfect. But Minervini, he relies on decades of empirical evidence to correct that. He says practice only makes a habit. It takes perfect practice to make perfection.
And the risk of practicing incorrectly it's far more damaging than most people realize. It leads to what the source calls bad muscle memory or training scars. And this isn't just about being a little inefficient. It's about actively programming flaws, these counterproductive, involuntary responses right into your nervous system that just lie there dormant until stress triggers them.
It is the ultimate silent killer of performance under pressure. And to illustrate the severity of this, the source shares an anecdote that is so vivid, it acts as a huge warning sign for all training methodologies.
Okay.
It involves a police officer who trained, meticulously for a high-stress, potentially lethal scenario, disarming an attacker's gun.
So tell us what happened in the drill, because the repetition he performed thousands of times was supposed to be flawless.
Well, the drill involved the officer snatching the weapon away from his training partner. But to reset the drill quickly and, get more reps in, the standard procedure they had adopted was for the officer to immediately hand the weapon back to his partner so they could go again.
Snatch, hand back.
Snatch, hand back, snatch, hand back. This was repeated hundreds, maybe thousands of times. The entire movement became deeply automated, a training scar.
And when the real confrontation occurred, when this officer's life was genuinely on the line, what was his ingrained automatic response?
Well, he successfully executed the first, very difficult part, snatching the weapon from the very real suspect. But in the split second that followed, before his conscious mind could even intervene, his body completed the program sequence.
No.
He reflexively handed the loaded gun right back to the suspect. It was only the rapid intervention of his backup that saved his life.
That is utterly chilling. It drives home the core lesson here. In a stressful situation, you never rise to the occasion.
No, you sink.
You sink to the level of your training. And if your training embeds flaws, even procedural shortcuts you design for efficiency and practice, those flaws will absolutely emerge when the pressure is highest and your conscious thought is just overwhelmed by adrenaline.
Exactly. The human mind seeks the path of least resistance, which is always the most deeply grooved neural pathway. So if you grooved in a flaw, that's where you're going to go.
Right.
Therefore, training must be structured to eliminate those flaws and, just as importantly, maximize the confidence and success in printing. This realization is what led Minervini to adopt and refine what he calls the V session.
So if mindless repetition is dangerous, the V session is the intentional structure designed to build perfect habits and, crucially, to program a champion mindset. It almost sounds like psychological warfare against your own bad habits.
It is, and it's brilliantly simple because it leverages a known cognitive bias, the serial position effect, which is often called the primacy-recency effect.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah. Cognitive science has long shown that when we process a sequence of information or events, like a 1-hour practice session, we recall the beginning, the primacy part, and the end, the recency part, most vividly. The middle just gets kind of fuzzy.
That's fascinating. So you're telling me that Minervini structured his training sessions, whether he was analyzing a stock trade, working on a specific guitar chord, or practicing competitive shooting around the known limitations of his own memory, that is truly next-level optimization.
It's the ultimate form of leveraging your brain's own architecture. He structures a session in 3 parts, which forms a V shape on a graph if you map confidence against time. For a standard 1-hour session, the breakdown is 15, 30, 15 minutes.
Let's look closer at those specific intervals. I mean, how would a CEO, for instance, apply this before a major presentation rehearsal, not just an athlete? The first 15 minutes is the start strong, the left side of the V, where recall and confidence are highest.
Right. This is dedicated entirely to easy activities, skills you've already mastered, or simple warm-ups.
Yeah.
For that CEO, this might be rehearsing the opening 3 minutes of their presentation, a part they already know perfectly.
Okay.
Or maybe running through a short, successful historical pitch. The purpose here is psychological. It's to get in the groove, to affirm your achievement, and immediately build a positive, winning self-image. You start with a guaranteed win, and that establishes momentum.
Then we sink to the bottom of the V for the 30-minute interval, the challenge. This is the low recall zone, which I guess makes it the ideal place for mistakes.
Precisely. This 30 minutes is reserved for the new, difficult, or unfamiliar tasks. This is where the CEO works on the Q&A section they dread, or where a martial artist drills a new, complex takedown. Mistakes are expected here.
It's the learning zone.
It is, and this is where instruction, critical feedback, and active problem-solving should happen. And because this period has low mental retention, the failures that happen here don't imprint as deeply on your subconscious confidence as they would if they happened at the beginning or the end.
So the challenge section is intentionally buffered. And finally, the last 15 minutes, the end strong, brings us back up the right side of the V, ensuring a high recall and high confidence exit.
You return immediately to something you've mastered, something certain. For the CEO, it might be nailing that powerful closing statement. For a musician, it's playing a favorite, perfectly executed piece. The goal is to ensure the last mental and physical picture that gets imprinted on your subconscious before you leave the training room is one of victory, competence, and flawless execution. You consciously reject the idea of sending a loser home.
That structural ratio is what makes the V session so powerful. You're dedicating 30 minutes to challenge and learning, but you are balancing that with 30 minutes, a 2-to-1 ratio, when you look at the high recall zones, dedicated entirely to success, affirmation, and imprinting.
It's applied behavioral science. You are consciously programming your subconscious mind for success. So even if that challenge period was grueling and frustrating, you walk away feeling motivated, competent, and with an undamaged self-image.
Right.
This technique recognizes that practice isn't just about repetition. It's about controlling the psychological narrative you are writing about yourself.
I think this directly addresses that trap of ego-driven repetition you warned about earlier. Most people, if they can't nail a difficult task in that 30-minute challenge period, they'll stubbornly keep going. They'll say, I won't stop until I get it right.
And that mindset is a philosophical trap. It's driven by ego, and it's the exact antithesis of perfect practice. Let's go back to that analogy. If you fail 19 consecutive times trying to hit a complex target and you only succeed on the 20th try because your sheer willpower and exhaustion finally pushed you through, what have you imprinted?
Not success.
No, you haven't imprinted one victory. You have actually imprinted 19 failures, 1 victory, and 20 repetitions of deep frustration.
So you've conditioned your body and mind to associate that specific skill with a feeling of struggle and failure. And that, again, will be the first thing your subconscious retrieves when the pressure hits. It confirms that the solution isn't to stop persisting, but to persist in the right way.
Precisely. Minervini states it very clearly. When failure occurs repeatedly, you must change the approach or move on to ensure you gain empowering feedback. Elite performers understand the wisdom in cutting a difficult session short to avoid driving negative experiences deep into the subconscious.
So if a market analysis is going badly,
You walk away, clear your head, come back. You don't force the solution through a stressed, tired mind.
So the mantra isn't work harder, it's work smarter and preserve the success imprint. On the flip side, if you find yourself in the groove, hitting a string of successful results, say you're an author who just wrote 3 incredible pages in 20 minutes, Minervini says you should extend that session.
Absolutely. When things are flowing well, you let the session run. If you're sinking a few 30-foot putts, you don't look at the clock. You keep going. You drive that successful experience deep into the nervous system.
Right.
Elite performers are constantly editing their training time in real time to maximize positive imprinting and minimize negative imprinting. It requires enormous self-awareness and discipline to stop a bad session early, even when the clock says you have 30 minutes left.
That's a profound shift in thinking. Let's look at a few other advanced practice techniques for maximizing efficiency from Chapter 7. The social element is covered with a highly structured approach to picking practice partners.
Yes, the dynamic 13-13-13 split. This is about controlling your social feedback loop. 1/3 of the time, you practice with someone less skilled than you. This gives you an ego boost and reinforces your confidence, solidifying that success imprint.
Okay.
Then, 1/3 of the time with someone equally skilled to gauge your progress accurately and engage in healthy, friendly competition.
And the final third, the stretching zone, is with someone clearly more skilled than you are.
That forces you to stretch, to learn new techniques, and to elevate your game by watching mastery in action. If you only practice with people better than you, your self-image erodes. If you only practice with people less skilled, you stagnate. The balanced approach ensures dynamic growth while protecting your belief system.
Then there is the fascinating and, again, sort of counterintuitive technique called compare and contrast for fixing ingrained errors. This involves purposefully doing the wrong thing, which seems to fly in the face of everything we just learned about avoiding training scars.
It seems contradictory, but the intention is different. This is not repetition. This is about building immediate, precise awareness. When you encounter difficulty, say your tennis serve keeps faulting, you deliberately perform the skill the wrong way, you observe what mechanics you use to produce the failure, and you remember that feeling.
And
Then you immediately perform the skill the correct way, making a mental note of the sensory and mechanical difference.
So you alternate bad, good, bad, good. What's the psychological benefit of this deliberate juxtaposition?
It builds crystal clear clarity. Most people know when they fail, but they often don't know why they fail, or exactly how the correct movement differs from the incorrect one on a kinesthetic level.
Right.
By performing the error on purpose, you turn the failure into a formula. You understand the mechanism of the error. This is so much more effective than just blindly repeating the correct movement and hoping it sticks. It turns a mystery into a precise, solvable equation.
That makes incredible sense. You move from the abstract knowledge of I need to swing better to the concrete understanding the difference between success and failure is the 3 inches my elbow drops on the downswing.
Exactly. And the final piece of practice advice is essential for framing your mindset. The advice to avoid being an avoider. You should never focus on not missing, not failing, or not losing.
Because the subconscious hears the core command, whether you preface it with don't or not.
Absolutely. The mind doesn't process negatives efficiently, especially under duress. So instead of focusing on not missing the target, focus on the positive outcome, like putting the shots into the designated A zone. If you are visualizing, you must visualize victory and success, because no one wins a gold medal by spending their preparation time envisioning failure.
Which segues beautifully into the technology of mental training.
Indeed. Now we move to Chapter 8, Building Mental Muscle with Visualization. We've established that physical training must be perfect. Now we look at the brain training, which Minervini calls visualization, the champion's edge.
And this is no longer up for debate, is it?
Not at all. Visualization is not wishful thinking. It is a highly valuable learned skill. We can start with the stunning data point that nearly 99% of Olympic athletes use visualization before competition. This overwhelming consensus from the highest level of performance validates it as a fundamental tool, not some optional extra.
And the power derives from that neurological reality you mentioned earlier. The brain interprets vividly imagined images identically to actual external stimulus. If you can fully immerse yourself, the subconscious does not distinguish between what is real and what is suggested.
This is a fundamental principle of neuroplasticity. When you vividly imagine yourself performing successfully, say, closing that major deal or finishing that marathon, a biochemical reaction begins in the brain. You release chemical signals that make your body feel exactly the way you were just thinking.
Wow.
And the more you fire those successful neural circuits, the more you hardwire the brain into those productive patterns. Your brain quite literally becomes an artifact of the successful thinking you've repeatedly implanted.
And the scientific evidence that confirms mental practice is effective even without physical movement is staggering. Let's review those 3 key studies cited in the source material, starting with the Harvard Visualization Study on motor skills.
The Harvard researchers had groups perform tasks involving subtle motor skills. The group that only visualized the task beforehand performed with nearly 100% accuracy.
100%.
Compared to just 55% accuracy for the non-visualizing control group. That mental rehearsal alone closed nearly half the performance gap.
A 45% performance gap closed just by thinking about it correctly. Then there's the famous basketball free throw experiment, which took the comparison a step further.
In that experiment, one group physically practiced free throws over several weeks. A control group did nothing. And the third group only visualized making the free throws. When they were all tested, the group that only visualized actually outperformed the group that only practiced physically.
That just blows the doors off the traditional view of training. It suggests that mental refinement can, in some cases, be superior to physical repetition if the physical repetition is flawed or aimless.
It highlights the mind's incredible capacity to refine mechanics and build confidence without physical exertion, focusing purely on perfect technique. But the most compelling, almost shocking evidence that visualization changes the body as well as the brain is the Ohio University CAST study.
This is the immobilized wrist study that shows visualization preventing muscle decay.
Yes. Volunteers wore surgical casts for a month, immobilizing their wrist muscles. The experimental group mentally flexed their immobilized wrist muscles for 11 minutes a day, 5 days a week, just visualizing the movement.
And what happened?
When the cast came off, that visualizing group emerged with muscles that were twice as strong as the control group that did nothing.
Twice as strong. It proves that the neurological pathways are being created and strengthened through thought alone. The mental rehearsal sends signals to the body, telling it to maintain strength and neural connection, even when physically restricted. It's the ultimate evidence that the mind is a physical tool for change.
Absolutely. When a basketball player visualizes, the brain is firing the exact same neurons and, crucially, the exact same motor units that they would use if they were actually shooting the ball. This is why technique matters just as much in visualization as it does in physical practice. If you visualize a flawed technique, you embed that flaw.
So if we accept the undeniable power of mental imagery, we need to know the proper techniques for maximizing its impact. Minervini identifies 3 critical pillars of imagery that must be utilized together.
They are internal, external, and kinesthetic. Internal imagery is rehearsing the scenario through your own eyes, seeing what you would see. This is the race car driver seeing the track through the visor, or the investor seeing the chart move precisely as predicted.
And external imagery is like watching a film of yourself performing, or watching yourself from a spectator's viewpoint.
Yes, this is useful for self-correction and understanding your posture or form, seeing yourself calm, confident, and competent. But the kinesthetic element is arguably the most critical for deep imprinting. It involves rehearsing the feel of the movement.
The kinesthetic, that physical sensation, the feel of the club hitting the ball, the smooth stretch of the muscle during a difficult yoga pose, or the feeling of intense focus during a coding sprint.
The most effective mental rehearsal combines all 3. You see yourself internally succeeding, you see yourself externally calm and in control, and you attach the strong, successful feeling, the kinesthetic sensation, to that mental movie.
And you have to attach emotion.
Crucially, you must attach strong emotional content, excitement, victory, or intense controlled focus. This anchors the image deep into the nervous system. You are programming a full sensory experience of success.
The ultimate goal, then, is to build a reliable mental blueprint, a deeply ingrained success template that the subconscious can instantly fall back on when the situation demands it. But visualization must go beyond just seeing yourself succeed easily. It needs to prepare you for the inevitable chaos, interruptions, and obstacles of the real world.
Right, which requires advanced application. Match simulation and contingency planning.
Match simulation.
It means rehearsing under conditions that mirror the real event as closely as possible. The more reality you can inject into practice, the less cognitive load you carry during execution. The historical example that really defines the standard for simulation used in the source material is the Navy SEALs preparing for the 2011 raid on the Osama bin Laden compound.
The scale of their preparation is legendary. Tell us about the full-scale replica they built.
They constructed a full-scale replica of the compound at Bagram Air Force Base. They made sure every detail was accurate, the height of the walls, the layout of the rooms, even the direction the doors swung and the type of doorknobs used. The teams practiced night after night for weeks.
They practiced for a 40-minute operation for weeks on end, until every single movement, every turn, every entry point was not just memorized, but instinctual. The goal was to remove conscious thought entirely from the physical action.
And that preparation is the antidote to panic. By the time the actual operation happened, the operators had already been there hundreds of times. The environment was known, the actions were automatic, and their minds were free to focus only on mission variables and immediate threats. The more unknowns you reveal in practice, the fewer surprises you face in execution. It's the definition of mental inoculation.
And a key component of match simulation is simulating stress itself, not just the environment.
Exactly. You need to inoculate yourself against the phenomenon of choking. This means training under mild pressure. This could be practicing your pitch in front of an audience of colleagues or sparring against an opponent you really want to impress. This exposure helps prevent the common response of over-trying, which is what often accompanies high-stress situations.
That University of Chicago study on golfers is a great parallel here.
It is. Golfers who learned to putt while actively being observed by an audience were less anxious and performed better under high pressure in a competition setting than those who only practiced alone. The exposure normalized the stress response.
So the high stakes feel less like an emergency and more like just a normal training variable.
Exactly. But the truly advanced performer knows that chasing perfect, flawless execution is often the enemy of preparedness. That's why contingency planning, rehearsing the recovery, is so critical to visualization.
This is the resilience factor. If you only visualize perfect execution, a slip-up in reality will shatter your confidence. So the goal is not to visualize the mistake.
No, but to immediately rehearse the effective, confident recovery.
For instance, a figure skater doesn't visualize falling, but they visualize getting up instantly, smoothly, and seamlessly continuing the routine, maybe even attacking the next jump with added ferocity.
Or an investor visualizing a sudden, unexpected market crash and then calmly executing their pre-planned hedging strategy without emotion. It shifts the mental framework from anticipating failure to anticipating resilience, which is the most critical psychological trait for sustained, high-level performance.
Okay, now that we've mastered perfect practice and programmed the mind through visualization, let's talk about the final days of preparation before the big day arrives. We move into Chapter 9, which focuses entirely on preparing for your big day.
This chapter is all about managing the psychological state just before peak performance. It addresses the root causes of the performance breakdown we call choking. And it's important to reiterate, choking is rarely about physical failure. It is almost entirely psychological.
The source material outlines 5 main reasons performers choke. They are an aggregation of all the training pitfalls we've discussed.
They boil down to 1. Unrealistic practice conditions, so no match simulation. 2. Lack of a consistent pre-performance routine, which means no insulation from external distraction.
Okay.
3. Worry, fear, and over-arousal, when that adrenaline overload impairs cognitive function. 4 is self-sabotage, so negative self-talk and auto-neurotic thinking.
Yeah.
And 5, failure to let go and trust your training, letting the conscious mind overthink the mechanics.
The first step in correcting any of these deficiencies is awareness. Specifically, awareness of the gap. The difference between the high performance you see in practice versus the lower, often disappointing performance you deliver during competition.
And the bigger that gap, the more unrealistic your training environment has been. Top performers are characterized by their self-awareness. They systematically monitor their internal state just before performance. They audit their minds to identify self-oriented negative thoughts, distinguishing helpful competitive intensity from destructive mental chatter.
This level of self-awareness allows them to regulate arousal, which is the energy state you have to enter. Arousal is necessary. You need to be up for the challenge. But an overdose leads to a cognitive crash. It impairs fine motor skills and complex decision-making. You have to find your optimal functional level.
And to find and maintain that optimal level, the source suggests utilizing an intervention tool called the pressure log.
I find this fascinating because it's a form of cognitive behavioral therapy applied directly to competition anxiety. How does the pressure log work in a practical sense?
The pressure log is about externalizing your internal chatter. It involves writing down, or even recording a voice note of, the exact thoughts, worries, and negative what-if projections you're processing just prior to performance or during moments of high stress.
So an entry might be something like, what if I mess up the opening line? Or the last time I faced this opponent, I lost terribly.
Exactly. And by documenting these thoughts, you pull them out of that swirling internal feedback loop, and you force them into a structured, visible space.
Which breaks the link between the thought and the involuntary emotional response.
Precisely. And once those negative projections are externalized and identified, the performer must intervene immediately at the worry stage and replace those limiting thoughts with empowering ones.
Yeah.
This is the heart of the Minervini method.
Instead of letting the worry escalate, you replace it with a predetermined affirmation.
Exactly. And the empowering replacement thought Minervini suggests is powerful because it links effort to deservingness. I'm supposed to be here because I put in the work and preparation. I deserve to win. This immediately recalibrates the performer's self-image to align with the desired outcome. It shifts the experience from fearing the pressure to enjoying the challenge.
With the meticulous preparation complete and the mindset calibrated, we move into the actual moment of execution in Chapter 10, Performance Time. This is the moment where, as we mentioned, the goal is simple: the art of letting go.
This is the critical final act. As the jazz masters often say, you practice until the technique is flawless, and then in performance you forget all that and you just play. The conscious mind must get out of the way to avoid paralysis by analysis overthinking and allowing intellectual interference with the deeply ingrained programming.
The source uses the neutral zone analogy, that 11-inch undisturbed space on a football field between two playmakers, to describe the required mental state just before execution. A calm, automatic, and spontaneous mental void.
Highly trained people need to think less consciously. We see this difference in focus between experts and novices. The expert archer focuses on the target center or the feel of the release, the outcome, the sensation. The novice archer focuses entirely on hand placement or mechanics, the minutiae.
So during performance, you have to de-emphasize the intellect and trust the training that resides in the subconscious, or, what we might call the right brain.
And to ensure that intellectual interference doesn't happen, Minervini outlines 6 essential steps to achieving peak performance in the moment. Let's start with step 1. Finding your optimal emotion functioning zone, or OEFZ.
OEFZ.
It's a crucial insight. It acknowledges that not all positive emotions are functional, and critically, some negative emotions can be highly functional depending on the task. This is about getting into character for this specific performance.
Give us a clear contrast of emotional repertoires here.
Okay, think about the optimal arousal level for a delicate 3-foot golf putt. It requires absolute, calm focus, near-zero anxiety, and a relaxed muscle state. Now compare that to the level needed for an MMA fighter entering the octagon, or a trader managing massive volatility. The fighter might need what we call N+ anger positive, controlled, functional aggression and intensity, which would instantly sabotage the golfer. The key is to know what emotional framework your specific task requires and consciously generate that state.
So it's about emotional intelligence applied to performance. Step 2 is the immediate physical tool for regulating that emotional zone: box breathing.
Box breathing is a powerful physiological intervention. It's the 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold technique. When anxiety creeps in, this simple, rhythmic physical routine immediately engages the vagus nerve and activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It takes control of the mind and body, stabilizing your heart rate and respiration, helping you rapidly re-enter that desired neutral zone.
That brings us to step 3, which is about establishing physical and mental triggers. In the source material, this is implicitly about making the mental jump from preparation to execution.
Yes. Step 3 is establishing a clear pre-performance cue or trigger. This must be a simple, immediate action that signifies to your subconscious: the time for thinking is over. The time for doing has arrived.
Like what?
This might be a specific phrase you say to yourself, a tap on your shoe, or a momentary glance at a chosen spot. The trigger is the mental ignition switch that moves control from the conscious mind to the highly trained subconscious.
The power of a simple physical cue to transition your state is remarkable. Now for step 4, controlling self-talk.
Your internal dialogue must be strictly positive, constructive, and task-related. The example of Serena Williams is powerful here. He would often use power thoughts and review notes during changeovers to maintain focus and confidence. When difficulty arises, you must verbally intervene and reinforce with positive commands to shut down the inner critic immediately. It's about being a disciplined editor of your internal monologue.
And step 5 is another visualization technique, but this is a critical one right before performance. Run your highlight reel.
This means watching a curated compilation of your best performances. And Minervini insists that at least 75% of these videos must be positive. This floods the mind with images of success right before competition. It imprints success and provides an immediate, powerful, and current template for your subconscious to emulate.
The source also details a fascinating, targeted intervention here called reverse polarity.
Reverse polarity is like emotional decontamination. You take a poor performance video, a genuine failure or mistake, and you watch it. Crucially, while watching the bad performance, you recall the specific negative self-talk that happened then, and you verbally replace it with positive, empowering statements now.
Oh, wow.
This conditions you to shut down the critic on cue, transforming the memory from a crippling fear into an empowering lesson in resilience and control. You're basically overriding the negative emotional charge of the memory.
And finally, step 6, which links back to the concept of psychological insulation, the pre-performance routine.
Rituals like Rafael Nadal fiddling with his hair or adjusting his water bottles just so, or a baseball batter's specific series of actions before stepping into the box, are far more than superstition. They are highly important focus devices. They insulate the performer from external distractions and set the conscious mind on one specific, simple task.
Which keeps the conscious mind busy, allowing the complex subconscious mechanisms, the decades of practice, to take over without interference.
For instance, the tennis serve routine might be: spin the racket handle, bounce the ball 3 times, visualize the perfect arc, execute a box breath, trigger a cue word like power, and then execute. The content mind is focused only on the ritual, freeing the intuitive genius.
The ultimate act of performance is letting go, performing uninhibitedly, trusting that intuitive genius developed through perfect practice. If the conscious mind is the problem, what is the best non-interference technique?
The most elegant solution is anchoring a simple song or melody during practice, and then humming or internally reciting it during competition. This occupies the conscious mind with a benign, non-interfering task, the melody, while the subconscious executes the deeply ingrained skills. The obstacles to letting go outcome focus, fear of repeating mistakes or over-trying, are all neutralized because the conscious mind is otherwise engaged.
The philosophy throughout Part 2 is crystal clear. Practice hard, perform easy. The preparation must be meticulous so the execution can be automatic.
And this exhaustive process of training the body and programming the subconscious naturally transitions us to the bonus chapter, where Minervini scales this disciplined focus from a single event to a lifetime. We're moving into Chapter 11, Living with Intention.
This sounds like integrating all these peak performance tactics into daily life. How does Minervini define intention in this context?
Intention here is defined as more than just working toward a goal. It is the commitment to awareness, a daily mindfulness dedicated to lifetime achievement, to self-actualizing the best version of yourself. It's the necessary structure that separates the dreamer from the achiever.
And the achiever commits to daily action rooted in conscious purpose.
That's it. And he contrasts this intentional life with what most people experience, which he labels the auto-neurotic kickoff.
The auto-neurotic kickoff. Explain that concept and why it's so detrimental to long-term success.
The auto-neurotic kickoff is the default modern setting, starting the day by reacting stressfully to outside stimuli. The alarm goes off, we hurry, we immediately check our phones for urgent notifications, we worry about the traffic or the meetings ahead. We function essentially like Pavlov's dogs, controlled by outside forces and external pressures.
Right.
This sets a cycle of anxiety and aimlessness that prevents us from being active, intentional participants in our own lives.
If you start your day unconsciously, you live your day unconsciously, meaning you are constantly playing defense instead of offense. The path to intentional living requires breaking that reactive cycle and adopting a daily standard operating procedure, or SOP, for conscious alignment.
The SOP for living with intention has 3 simple yet disciplined components. It requires about 20 to 30 minutes total per day. The first is morning priming, the intentional kickoff. This starts with 5 minutes of box breathing to stabilize the nervous system, followed by visualization, rehearsal, and critically, questioning.
What kind of questions do you ask during this intentional kickoff?
You set the intention for the day, you might ask. What version of myself do I need to be today to execute my priorities? Or, what are the 3 most challenging interactions I will face, and how will my best self handle them calmly and productively? This is where you mentally run through successful outcomes, visualizing resilience before the day even throws its first challenge at you. It is the polar opposite of rushing out the door.
This practice guarantees that your first moments of the day are governed by conscious choice, not involuntary reaction. What is the second step in the SOP?
The second part is checking in throughout the day. This requires regularly pausing, a crucial act of discipline that counters the frenetic pace of modern life to gauge how your current thoughts, actions, and interactions align with or oppose the primary intention you set that morning.
So if your intention was to be patient and productive and you find yourself snapping at a colleague during a meeting, the check-in acts as an immediate course correction.
Exactly. It prevents small deviations from turning into major derailments. It's an ongoing, non-judgmental audit of whether you are actively being your best self in the moment, allowing you to steer back on course immediately.
And the final and perhaps most vital component of this lifelong SOP is the evening reflection.
This is taking 10 to 15 minutes for a personal audit. You start again with box breathing to calm the system, and then you honestly and analytically reflect on where you succeeded and where you failed to align with your best self and your intentions.
And this isn't intended to be self-criticism or a list of regrets. It's analytical feedback designed for learning.
It is entirely feedback-oriented. You look at the day's events and ask, what specific action or inaction did I take that created that result? And then you find the meaning and the lesson in the outcome. By doing this, you prevent repeating errors and deepen the successful pathways you wish to reinforce.
This daily practice, this commitment of 20 to 30 minutes to intentional awareness, sounds like a fundamental restructuring of one's identity.
It is. Minervini states that this process transforms the individual into an auto-actualizing person, someone who feels more deserving of success, who lives life consciously, and who is always steering their path like an inner trim tab on a massive ship toward a purposeful, meaningful destination. It transforms days into a purposeful lifetime.
That is the complete holistic cycle we've explored today. We've moved from raw belief through the meticulous structuring of perfect practice, using the V session and advanced techniques like compare and contrast, into the execution phase, where we leverage the mind through visualization and box breathing to let go and trust our instincts, and finally integrating that discipline into a conscious, intentional life. The ultimate secret to winning, it seems, is realizing that psychological limits are always the first ones reached.
They are, long before the physical or technical limits. By mastering perfect practice and embedding these techniques, the V-session structure, the 3 pillars of visualization, the resilience rehearsal, the box breathing trigger, and the intentional kickoff SOP, we are fundamentally rewiring the brain to believe that success is not accidental. It is automatic, because the necessary patterns have been established through conscious, intentional work.
We've broken down the V-session structure with its 2-to-1 positive ratio, explored the mind-altering power of visualization in the Ohio CAS study, detailed how to use the pressure log and OEFZ to inoculate against choking, and learned the 3-part SOP for intentional living. These are incredibly actionable, high-impact takeaways for anyone, regardless of their arena. Success truly is not about luck. It's about smart commitment, discipline, and persistence, applied intelligently at the subconscious level.
Minervini concludes this section with a profoundly challenging question, reminding us of our ultimate role in the human drama. He asks us to reflect. The beautiful composition known as the human race will go on, and while you are here, you are indeed contributing a verse. The question is, what will your verse be? That is the intention that must drive every practice session, every performance, and every day.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into maximizing personal power and purpose. If you enjoyed what you learned today, thank you for watching, guests. Please like it, share, subscribe, follow up in next video.